Today, we're looking at a red ink by Caran Infra Red. Another one that we're not supposed to actually be able to see. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. As always, there's timestamps down below in the description, so if you're in a hurry, you can skip around. But if you got the time, I would appreciate you checking out the entire video. You can also follow me over on Instagram, and if you're new here and like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then inked up this Retro 51 Tornado with a broad nib, used it to write for a day, and took my notes for this video. This first writing sample is done with a standard set of paper, Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Now, there are additional writing samples that will occur later. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X 450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X 750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is a tad bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 7 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 8 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both shows no color variation. We're not getting it in the writing. Tomoe River with no bleeding, minor Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade, and 13 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both are showing no color variation, and we're not getting any. And Rhodia with no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is just a little bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 8 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both shows no color variation, and we're still not getting any. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see a very bright pink on the bottom that's pushing its way up, and then we see a hint of some orange between the pink and the red that appears at the top. Now the one on the right I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And it looks the same, except that I marked that piece of filter paper with the letter D, so I'm not expecting any additional resistance for it being able to sit around. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I see that there's a lot of spread. However, everything's completely readable, which would make me feel safe using it in a note-taking situation if I wanted to go back and highlight. Water is reactivating and lifting this, not all of it, but you can see on the right side of where that water was, the white of the paper is just getting ready to come through. Pen Flush is doing everything that water did and nothing more. Now, it only took water to get this out of my pen. The 1/3 bleach solution is completely removing it from the paper. I test ink viscosity or flow by using a tilt test, and I'll link that somewhere here. And for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Put the data onto a bell curve or standard deviation for it to be easily understood. Caran Infra Red has a viscosity of 1.64, making it a very wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Caran Infra Red has an average dry time of 9 seconds, making it a fast drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Caran Infra Red, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a nice blue, and I chose Diamine's Florida Blue. The second writing sample is done on yellow Rhodia, Levenger, and white lines paper. Here we're looking at yellow Rhodia paper. We're not looking at performance so much as we're looking at any kind of tone change. And what we do see is that in the extra fine, it looks just a little bit darker. We see no tone variation on the yellow paper, where on the white paper, we did get a little bit. So it's just nice to know what it'll do. Levenger paper, with no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 5 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 6 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we still get none. And last up is white lines paper, which it has no bleeding. It does have some minor ghosting that's going on, not the kind of ghosting that would stop most people from using the back of the page. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 4 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 6 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we're not getting it in the writing. And that's all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Caran Infra Red? This is a very boring, as in predictable, red ink. Now, predictable and boring is good to know exactly what you're going to get from that ink before you put it into the pen. It offers no real shading, and it draws real attention in how bright it is to the corrections that you're trying to make in your own writing. So what nib and pen give the best writing experience with this ink? There can be some tone variation depending on the pen you put it into. I would prefer a nice medium flow, fine or medium pen to really be able to keep the thin lines that have me writing between other lines. I'm going to remind you that I'm here every day with a new ink review. Thanks for watching.